Ladies and gentlemen, we're back with Season 1, Episode 7. This is our first time skip episode. Now, what's funny about this to me is that I actually bothered to go and look up exactly how long this time skip was. It's only a few months. Like, that's it. Just, it's like a hop. It still qualifies. It still counts as a time skip, but it's nowhere near as long as they kind of portray it to be. But yeah, the more I thought about it, the more that made sense. The problem here is this makes David extraordinarily stupid. I hate to jump ahead of my notes, but we get a good shot of how much of his body has been replaced by chrome at this point. He even says the line, I feel better in metal than in my own skin. And he is almost fully borked. He's not fully there, but he's leaning that way. And yeah, no, exactly, Lord Harriman. Because that's the thing. He's already starting to shake. He's already starting to have the first signs of cyberpsychosis. He's already on his way out. You're right. He is not thinking about the future at all. He probably isn't going to last a few more months at this point, given the way his is. And yeah, I noticed they name dropped Adam there. Can I jump in and say something really quick that some people might find funny? I haven't really gotten this complaint, but I've gotten a couple of people who've mentioned that I burned through these very, very quickly, as in the process of watching the episode. Would you believe, from my perspective, I'm always worried about going too slowly? Because remember, while I'm watching, I'm usually pausing periodically to go take notes, or to go research something, like I was looking up the time skip thing, or I looked up something about the nature of how the old world works, or the dude they name drop later. And I'm usually pausing, and therefore making the episode take longer than it otherwise would. Anyways. Yeah, Bart Moss. We'll get to him. The episodes do feel like they're racing by. Yeah, it's a few months. I actually just said that. So we have, the first act is done. Cool. Establishment, world building, cool. Second act, done. Everything goes to hell. Third act, as usual, the policy follows true. You establish, you develop, you pay off. And they've been following that pattern pretty consistently here. So this episode is, once again, establish. Okay, here's our new status quo. David has gotten swole. Actually, he hasn't. He's just a little bit bigger and a little bit more metal. He is definitely bringing in a lot more jobs. He's making a lot better money. He's a pretty competent solo. He's taken over his own crew, and he gets jobs from all kinds of people, including... Did you catch that? That's Wakoko in this one. For those of you not aware, she is a really good fixer. Like, that's one of the well-known, well-accomplished fixers of the setting. So he's doing some good jobs, is what I'm trying to say. And taking out an entire Maelstrom enclave in order to rescue someone, that's a pretty high-tier job. He's definitely moving up in the ranks. So it makes sense. We even see his new apartment, which is up on the southeastern hills, or I guess that's just eastern hills of Night City. You know, some of the place where you're actually up and have some space to yourself. Yeah, they noticed they just go in through this front door, which worked. And yeah, they were just there for one person. They probably saved other people. I would like to think that the other people there were saved, but... Uh-oh, final boss time. Well, apparently that apartment's from the independent ending of the game, which I haven't actually seen because it's like the only ending that I couldn't get to trigger for some reason, if that's what I'm thinking of it. Thank you very, very much, Race Cat. Always appreciate, muchly, and obliged. Thank you. If you'll give me one moment, please. I'll write that down for Metro, Exodus, Killzone, and East Shade. I mean, if that's the apartment from the game, then we know he's dead, right? As if it wasn't going that way anyways. Anyways, getting back on track. So they go in for the Maelstrom. Rebecca doesn't look older at first. And I mentioned that because my first thought when I saw him was, wow, it's a few years older past, and Rebecca doesn't look any older at all. But again, that's when I did my due diligence, looked up the time skip. It's just a few months. Okay. She does, however, have completely new custom hands. And she's kind of going the same way her brother did, with being just a little bit non-human in her animation. You know, she reacts to people and interacts with people. Also, I love her guns, her gigantic-ass guns. Just fun stuff there. She's still a very good shot, of course. And David is now using the gorillas. Of course he is. I haven't commented on this before. I do like how they go out of their way to showcase when they activate the special abilities of the cyberware by having like the X-ray shot of the veins and the nerves, and then they go for the shot. It's just a small little detail I haven't commented on yet, and it's one of the better little direction choices I think they made. Another good direction choice they made is in this very episode. In fact, it's the best animation I've seen in the entire show so far. Oh, gotcha. 040, my bad. So there's a bit where they do the slow-mo thing and he rushes up and he goes for the punch, but then the guy's like, I've got slow-mo too, and then he gets behind him and he shoots him in the back of the head. That's all neat and all, but then they show it in normal time. That's the part that impressed me. Actually showing the shot of them doing it full speed, you know, and that was it. That was cool. And it's a good way of showcasing what's actually going on every time we see these. It's a little bit too easy. Fiction falls into this problem a lot. It's a little bit too easy to abstract when you're operating at a different level, and then just assume that all the rules apply the same, which they don't. A lot of Flash stuff that is to say, The Flash, you know, Barry Allen, is guilty of this exact same kind of concept. So I do like how they showed this is what it actually looks like. So, then the kid runs forward and gets killed on his very first run. Yeah, it tracks. Cool. I could comment on that. They do talk about Wakoko. I already mentioned her here, a really good fixer, so clearly he's got some connections. And naturally, they're all asking about Lucy, who I noticed was not present in this reestablishment heist. Yeah, the reaction is just, oh, okay. Quick and dirty. There's also this very small bit where Rebecca is clearly trying to get into David's pants, which I don't blame her, because, I mean, look at all that metal. Ugh. Assuming he even has a dick anymore, which he might not at this point. What? It's an accessory. I do find the way she says it. I ain't good at just playing, or I ain't good at playing just friends. Like, come on, and it's just like, maybe I'll try a new technique. I don't know. He has an enhanced dick. I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole. We all know what happened when Jesse managed that over in Cyberpunk 2077. Anyways, so we cut to Doc, who's doing some operations and is continuing to chrome up David. It's actually funny because he's still doing work for him, even though he knows it's a terrible idea. I guess he just needs the money and is willing to go along with it. But this is our first shot of what I already talked about earlier. He is very, very, very chromed up. We get a nice long panning shot up his mostly nude body as we see exactly how much of him isn't skin anymore. And yeah. This is also when we name drop Adam Smasher, which makes perfect sense. This is a good time to talk about Adam Smasher, who is a full body conversion. He's full chrome. Like, it's debatable that there's hardly any of Adam Smasher is still organic at this point in time. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's the brain and the spine, if I'm remembering correctly, but correct me if I'm wrong on that. Either way, that's full body. That's just... yeah, and we show a quick shot of him killing many, many people, as well as discussing a little bit of who he is and what he is, filling graveyards on behalf of Arasaka. Oh, absolutely, Lord Hermon. Yeah, Smasher is... How do I put this? Smasher is as good as of an outcome as you're going to get if you go full Borg. Because he is a higher functioning Cyber Psycho. But that's about as good as that's getting right there. So, Faraday reaches out to David, and this is... Yeah, he also mentioned he was in the Fourth War, although we have no context for what the Fourth Corporate War was, but we don't need to. Not really. And yeah, Adam Smasher is probably the closest thing. Like, we talk a lot about who's the strongest thing in a setting. Smasher is probably the highest tier thing in, like, in the majority of Cyberpunk at this point in history. He's your end boss. He's your Palpatine equivalent. Not in political power, that's Elder Arasaka. I could see Morgan being up there, too. But either way, Adam Smasher is definitely in contest, right? He's definitely towards the top of the tiers. I do like how Doc flat out says you need to start chilling on getting more Borg unless you want a strict diet of immunoblockers. And naturally, David just waves it off. It's like, it's fine. It's cool. Okay. This is when we find out that Faraday was actually working under Militech, because Tanaka was right. Of course he was. This is when we see the apartment. He kept the ashes. He kept a picture of his mother. I love the picture. She's so super proud of him, and he's just looking away, like, embarrassed about everything. So, what I was expecting here, because we have two people who are very naked for an extended period of time, was this to lead to a sex scene. I was actually surprised and impressed by the fact that instead they drive out to the Badlands and look up at the stars. We also finally get some of Lucy's backstory. Now, I actually called pretty much all of this, to be honest with you. So they were expendables. They were a bunch of nobody's going to miss them kids who were then trained to be deep divers. And they were then let loose and sent into the old net. They also explain what the old net is and the nature of how the internet is not actually the internet anymore. In fact, there is no internet anymore. There's just local networks. They don't go fully in depth into this. We've talked about this before when it comes to Cyberpunk, the game. But yeah, the old net is absolute hell. It is an unpleasant and nightmarish death place. That's the Dire Lands right there. That's the place you don't want to go unless you're really, really, really ready for it. This is when we mentioned Rach Batemoss, aka Data Crash, aka pretty much the thing that crafted the setting the way it is nowadays. You know how that is, right? Almost every settings have like one huge critical key event, and that one event is what kind of builds the setting. In Fallout, it's when the bombs fell, for example. Or over in, say, even in Star Wars, it's arguably the Clone Wars, right? Stuff like that. The stuff that just so much of the setting hinges around, right? So yeah, Batemoss, he crashed the net and destroyed a huge amount of it. Lots of tech was lost. Lots of damage was done. It pretty much led to what is functionally a pseudo-post-apocalypse. It also kind of led to some other things with the AIs. There's a bunch of consequences of it, but that's one of the really, really big things that created this thing. So it makes sense that they're trying to exposit it here. It also makes sense that it's directly tied into Lucy's backstory, that she is someone who was one of those kids who was thrown into the Thresher, because let's be honest, that's what Arasaka was doing. They're expendables after all. We also find out a little bit, thank you, Evo. We find out a little bit, you've heard this song, about what the AIs are and why they are to fear. There's so much to be afraid of the AIs in this setting. There's a reason the Black Wall exists, right? Nobody wants to go beyond the Black Wall. We were talking, I think it was just yesterday, or sorry, it was obviously today. I think it was the previous episode. Exactly, Loke. There's exactly the vibe here. There's like 5 things you never want to mess with in this setting, right? And the Black Wall, and if you want to continue it, like the Black Wall and the AIs are on that list of, nope, I'm good. They are the monsters in the ocean. Here there be dragons. We don't... the Black Wall is a digital barrier. The Black Wall is something that you do not want to pass, because if you pass it, it means... Well, first of all, you probably can't pass it, but if you successfully do so, congrats. You've probably just damned everyone forever. Yay. So why is the old net so vicious? So AIs, one of the reasons AIs are so terrifying is they just have the ability to operate so much faster and more precisely and from so many more directions than a netrunner. So they just kind of get into your brain and destroy it almost instantly. They can just run too many calculations and attack you from too many vectors simultaneously. The AIs are terrifying. And the old net is filled with rogue AIs who... It's debatable if they're even sentient, and it doesn't matter if they are. For all intents and purposes, they are monsters. Like, in every way that it matters, they're just monsters. They're not even the kind of monsters you can defeat in the traditional sense of the word, because there's no real physical thing to destroy. Yes, if you throw an AI at a player, which I've never done, by the way, That's either a super optional boss or an unwinnable encounter. That's exactly right. Euden Chronicles, Unicorn Overlord, and Triangle Strategy. Thank you, as always, Ventures, for your support. Much obliged. Yeah, I'm sure there's some way to push back against the AIs. Lord knows Cyberpunk 2077 dips into that. No spoilers. But yeah, that's something we want to stay away from. So they do a good job of showcasing the old net. They say the old net. It should probably be mentioned there's not one old net. That's not how that works. There's just a whole bunch of server farms that are still operating out there, which have a whole lot of data on them. Old data, old AIs, old programs, old demons, as they call them nowadays. And all of that stuff, that's what they're sending them on to. So old net is more like doing, I don't know, like imagine you're trawling the ocean floor. And obviously you say you're trawling the ocean floor, but the ocean floor is a big place, right? So it's like here or here or here or here. And each spot has its own dangers and its own rewards. And again, continuing the trend, the AIs down there are pretty much like whatever eldritch abomination thing is waiting to just grab you and eat you, which is exactly what happens to her fellows. And yeah, there also is no new net. Nobody's actually reconnected the net yet since the thing, at least unless I'm mistaken. I'm not sure if the timeline has moved forward past 2077 a substantial amount. So, yeah, honestly, I legitimately think that obviously some of the corporations don't want to destroy the old net hubs because they want the data on those hubs, because that's extremely valuable tech, like above and beyond what they have even access to right now. But you can't tell me there aren't other people who would just be like, yeah, let's just go, like, bomb the place. Because at a certain point, like, no matter how good those AIs are, you set up some freaking grenades around the server hub, we're good, right? But of course, there's conflicting interest here. That's just probably exactly how it's working out. Yeah, Netwatch would probably be on top of this as well. Anyways, so we get this big backstory about what old tech is, how deep diving works, etc., etc. Yes, that would be the problem, Loke. There are issues here. I'm not trying to say it'd be easy. I just think more people should probably be doing it. Then again, maybe some people have been doing that. Maybe that's an adventure idea right there. Go knock over this server farm. That should be a milk run. Anyways, that sounds like a fun idea, actually. And I'll reach out to the players, and I'll decide on one of the players, and I'll reach out to them individually and privately and say, hey, you're actually working for Arasaka. And turn them into a saboteur, right? And turn them into someone who's actually against the other group. Sorry. Anyways. Yeah, nuclear sub AIs. Let's not even get into that. Or yeah, and then reach out to another player. A separate player. And they're working for Netwatch. And the rest of the team just knows that they're working for, like, a fixer who's set them up with a job. Now you got me thinking about this. You have to have the right player setup for that, Lord Harriman. You have to have players you trust for that. And they have to trust me as a GM for that to work. I don't know. Food for thought. So David's hand is starting to shake. Boy, it didn't take long. I mean, he's chromed up so hard, I am astonished he's still alive, to be quite honest with you. Please keep in mind how little period of time he has replaced how much of his body. He has got a ticking clock right now. I'm not even sure he's aware of that. Remember, this kid is at absolute most 18, because it's only been months since he was 17. There's no way. Netwatch tends to have free reign on a lot of things, Triaxi, because they're Netwatch. Yeah, why is David so resistant to Chrome? I guess we'll find out. Yeah. I'm just saying, I'm just going to call it right now. If anything happens to Lucy, he's gone. Like, the second that happens, he's gone. Anyways, there's a theme that's been present in the whole show so far, which is chasing someone else's dream. You know, sacrificing yourself for someone else, which is pretty appropriate for something like Cyberpunk, where everybody's working for the corpos to some extent or another. I find that interesting and engaging, excuse me. But what bothers me about it is they had to say it to my face. Like, I've been getting that this whole time. Obviously, he's doing this whole thing with the corporate, the academy, for his mother. It was always her dream. And then he popped out and tried to do his own thing, but then he fell into Main's dream and just started doing Main's job. Lucy herself was just doing things for Arasaka, and David has already been told flatly to his face that he's at the behest of Militech, who's just fighting after Arasaka. And all of this... Oh, God, that's horrifying, Pedro. That's so horrifying. I love it. It's been a good theme. And then she flat out calls it out. You've been just caught chasing someone else's dream. And it's like, oh my God, don't do that. Don't do that. Still, we then cut to her taking someone down, and we see what a really good Netrunner can do on the fly, and why Netrunners are so feared and so useful in this setting. Just like so many other things, like a good Fixer and a good Ripper Doc, you really want a really good Netrunner on your team and on your side. Cut to credits. Thoughts? Oh yeah, Lucy's been hiding her skill from day one. Of course she has. Yeah, why would he know what he wants? He's 18 or 17. He really is a kid. I know this is Cyberpunk and you gotta grow up early, but seriously, he's just a kid. He's just a kid. Do you remember being 17? Because I do. I was an idiot when I was 17. Yeah, you don't just mature faster because you're in tough places. Fiction likes to pretend that occasionally. I'm feeling yellow. I'm feeling yellow. I was debating orange. I was, because it's solid, but then I realized that what I'm describing is yellow. It's a good reestablisher. We have reset the status quo. We've moved things forward a little bit. The team has changed, but not that much. Falco gets a couple more lines. It's always good. And yeah, we've moved forward into our final arc. Our next episode is episode 8, Stay. And I think we're going to keep going with this. We might not finish today, but we're definitely going to keep going with this. So, we'll see. I'll see you in a minute.